Just when the world thought it had figured out China's AI strategy, China changed the story again. A few days ago, everyone was talking about one name, Kimi K3. It dominated AI discussions, flooded social media, and convinced many people that China had finally built an open-weight model capable of standing alongside the world's best. Normally, that kind of breakthrough would dominate headlines for weeks. But this time, something unusual happened. Before the excitement around Kimi K3 had even settled, Alibaba quietly introduced another frontier AI model, Qwen 3.8 Max Preview. Now, if you're thinking, so what? Big companies release AI models all the time. That's exactly what most people thought. But that's also why almost everyone missed the real story. Because this isn't just about Qwen, and it isn't just about Kimi either. The real question is, why are powerful AI models suddenly coming out of China one after another? Is it simply a coincidence? Or are we watching a much bigger shift that most people haven't noticed yet? Because if the answer is the second one, then this video isn't about a single AI model. It's about the beginning of a completely new chapter in the global AI race. Here's what makes this so unusual. The AI industry normally doesn't move this fast. When a company releases a major model, people spend weeks testing it. Developers compare it with competitors. Businesses decide whether it's worth adopting. And only then, the next big headline arrives. But that's not what happened here. Before the AI community had finished exploring Kimi K3, Alibaba stepped in with Qwen 3.8 Max Preview. Suddenly, the conversation changed. People stopped asking, is Kimi K3 actually that good? And started asking something much bigger. What is China doing? Because one breakthrough can happen by chance. Two major breakthroughs, arriving almost back to back, start to look like a pattern. And patterns are far more important than headlines. Think about it. Imagine walking past a construction site and seeing one skyscraper being built. That's interesting. But if you walk a few blocks further and see another skyscraper, then another, you stop asking who built this building, and you start asking, why is this entire city changing so quickly? That's exactly what's happening in China's AI industry. Most people are looking at individual AI models, but the real story isn't one building. It's the city that's being built around them. And once you see that, everything else starts to make a lot more sense. Because Qwen 3.8 isn't the destination. It's another piece of a much larger puzzle. But here's where the story becomes really interesting. Alibaba didn't launch Qwen 3.8 because the world was waiting for another chatbot. It launched it because the AI race has entered a completely different phase. A phase where being good is no longer enough. You have to improve again and again. According to Alibaba, Qwen 3.8 Max Preview is designed to compete with today's frontier AI models, especially on difficult tasks like advanced reasoning, coding, and long, complex workflows. Those are exactly the kinds of tasks professional developers care about the most. But notice something important. Alibaba isn't asking people to believe its claims just because it says so. The company released the preview knowing exactly what would happen next. Thousands of developers would immediately start testing it, trying to break it, trying to find weaknesses, trying to compare it with every major model already on the market. Because that's how the AI world works. The real test doesn't begin after the launch event. The real test begins when developers get their hands on the model. And if the model performs well under that pressure, its reputation grows naturally. If it doesn't, the internet finds out very quickly. That's why the launch of Qwen 3.8 wasn't just another product announcement. It was Alibaba saying, we're ready to be judged. And in the AI industry, that's one of the boldest statements a company can make. But here's the question almost nobody was asking. Even if Qwen turns out to be an excellent model, why are so many Chinese companies reaching this level at almost the same time? That's where this story becomes much bigger than Alibaba. To understand what's happening, you have to stop thinking about AI models for a moment. Seriously, forget Qwen, forget Kimi, forget every benchmark you've ever seen, because those aren't the biggest story anymore. The biggest story is something most people never look at. The ecosystem. Think about Hollywood. People remember the actors, but actors alone don't create blockbuster movies. You need directors, writers, studios, editors, visual effects teams, music composers, hundreds of people working together. Take away the ecosystem, and even the best actor can't make a great movie alone. AI works in a surprisingly similar way. One powerful model is impressive, but one model doesn't build an AI industry. You need companies training new models, cloud providers supplying computing power, Researchers publishing new ideas, developers building applications, universities producing new talent, and startups turning those models into products that millions of people can actually use. That's an ecosystem. And this is where China's recent AI story becomes so interesting, because we're no longer seeing one successful company. We're seeing multiple companies reaching frontier-level capabilities within a relatively short period of time. Each new release pushes everyone else to move faster. Each breakthrough raises expectations, and each company adds another piece to the overall ecosystem. Suddenly, this isn't one company trying to catch the world. It's an entire ecosystem accelerating together. And once that happens, the conversation changes completely. Because now the question isn't, which AI model is better? The real question becomes, which ecosystem will create the next generation of AI breakthroughs? But there's another reason these Chinese AI models are getting so much attention. And surprisingly, it has very little to do with benchmark scores. It has to do with freedom. Imagine you're opening a restaurant. You have two choices. The first option, you rent a fully equipped kitchen. Everything is already there. The ovens, the tools, the staff. But there's one condition. You can only cook the way the owner allows. If they change the rules, raise the price, or close the kitchen, there's nothing you can do. Now imagine the second option. Instead of renting someone else's kitchen, you build your own. At first, it takes more work. But now you decide everything. You choose the equipment, you redesign the menu, you hire your own staff, you expand whenever you want. That's very similar to the difference many developers see between relying entirely on closed AI services and having access to powerful open-weight models. For most people, asking simple questions, a chatbot is enough, and that's perfectly fine. But companies building AI products don't just ask questions. They're creating coding assistants, research tools, business automation systems, AI agents that work for hours instead of seconds. Those products often need far more control than a simple chat interface can provide. That's why launches like Kimi K3 attracted so much attention. And that's also why developers immediately started looking at Qwen 3.8. Because they're not only asking, how smart is this model? They're asking something much more valuable. Can we build our future on top of it? And in the AI industry, that question is often more important than any benchmark score you'll ever see. And that brings us to the real battlefield. Because AI companies aren't only competing for users anymore. They're competing for developers. At first, that might not sound like a big deal. But think about who creates the AI products we use every day. The next breakthrough coding assistant, the next AI-powered video editor, the next medical research platform, the next business automation tool. None of those products appear out of nowhere. Someone has to build them. And before they write a single line of code, they have to answer one question. Which AI model should we build on? That decision can shape an entire company. If developers trust your model, thousands of new applications can grow around it. If they don't, even a brilliant model can slowly fade into the background. That's why every major AI company wants developers experimenting with its technology. Because today's side project could become tomorrow's billion-dollar startup. History has shown this before. The platforms that attract developers often become much more valuable than the platforms that simply attract attention. And suddenly, the excitement around Qwen 3.8 starts to make a lot more sense. Alibaba isn't just trying to impress people with another AI launch. It's trying to convince developers that its ecosystem is worth building on. Because if enough developers make that choice, the impact of one model can spread far beyond Alibaba itself. And that's exactly why the AI race is becoming so difficult to predict. It's no longer just a competition between companies. It's becoming a competition between entire ecosystems, each trying to attract the people who will build the future. But here's where the story takes another unexpected turn. For years, most people believed that only a handful of companies could consistently build frontier AI models. The barriers were simply too high. You needed enormous computing power, world-class researchers, massive engineering teams, and billions of dollars in investment. That hasn't changed. Building frontier AI is still one of the hardest challenges in technology. What's changing is the number of companies reaching that level, and that's exactly why Qwen 3.8 matters. On its own, it's an impressive AI model. But when you place it next to Kimi K3, and then look at the broader wave of Chinese AI development, a different picture starts to appear. Instead of asking which company is winning, a better question becomes, Why are more companies suddenly becoming serious contenders? Because every new contender changes the competitive landscape. It forces everyone else to move faster, to improve sooner, to innovate more aggressively. Competition doesn't slow technology down, it usually does the opposite. It speeds everything up. And that's exactly what we're beginning to see. Not just in China, but across the global AI industry. Every major release raises the bar for everyone else. Every breakthrough creates pressure. And every new competitor makes the next breakthrough even harder to predict, which means the biggest surprise in AI may not be Qwen 3.8 itself. It may be how quickly the entire industry is accelerating. So why does it feel like AI is moving faster than ever before? The answer isn't as simple as companies are building better models. Something much bigger is happening. Every major breakthrough is making the next breakthrough easier to achieve. Think about mountain climbing. The first team has to find the route, clear the obstacles, build the path. It's the hardest journey. But the teams that follow don't always start from the bottom. They learn from what already exists. They discover better equipment, better techniques, better maps. Technology often works the same way. Every published research paper, every engineering improvement, every optimization becomes another building block for the future. That doesn't mean copying someone else's work. It means the entire field keeps moving forward together. That's one of the reasons AI progress can suddenly feel explosive. One breakthrough inspires another. One innovation creates new ideas. And competitors respond with breakthroughs of their own. This cycle repeats again and again and again, which is why the gap between major AI releases now feels much shorter than it did only a few years ago. And that's exactly why the launch of Qwen 3.8 attracted so much attention. People weren't only evaluating one new model. They were asking a much bigger question. If progress is accelerating this quickly today, what will AI look like just 1 year from now? That's a question nobody can answer with certainty. But one thing is becoming increasingly clear. The pace of innovation is no longer slowing down. If anything, it's becoming even harder to keep up. But maybe we've been looking at AI the wrong way. Every time a new model is released, the internet immediately starts asking the same question. Who's winning? OpenAI, Google, Anthropic, Alibaba, Moonshot? But history tells us something interesting. The biggest technology revolutions were rarely won by a single breakthrough. They were driven by momentum. Think about electricity, or the internet, or smartphones. None of them changed the world because of one invention. They changed the world because thousands of improvements kept arriving, one after another. Each one made the next one possible. AI appears to be entering that same stage. The story is becoming less about one spectacular release and more about continuous acceleration. That's why Qwen 3.8 matters. Not because it proves someone has already won, but because it adds another signal that the pace of innovation is increasing. And when innovation speeds up, predictions become much harder. A company leading today may face an entirely new competitor tomorrow. A model dominating benchmarks this month may be challenged a few weeks later. We've already started seeing that happen. And if there's one lesson history keeps repeating, it's this. Technology has a habit of surprising the people who think the future is already decided. Maybe that's exactly where we are today. Not at the end of the AI race, but at the beginning of its most unpredictable chapter. So, if this is really becoming an ecosystem race, how does an ecosystem actually win? Surprisingly, it doesn't win by building one perfect AI model. It wins by making thousands of people want to build with it. Think about your smartphone. The reason it became so useful wasn't because it came with every feature on day one. It became powerful because millions of developers kept creating new apps. Every new app made the platform more valuable. Every new idea attracted even more developers, and eventually, the ecosystem became bigger than the device itself. AI is starting to follow a very similar path. The companies building frontier models aren't only competing to release the smartest AI. They're trying to create the platform that inspires the next generation of builders. Because somewhere right now, a small team is probably working on the next AI product that millions of people will use. Another startup is experimenting with a completely different idea. Another researcher is solving a problem that nobody else has solved yet. None of them know which model will become their long-term foundation. And that's exactly why every major AI release matters. Each new model gives developers another option, another tool, another direction, another possibility. That's how ecosystems grow. Not through one giant breakthrough, but through thousands of smaller decisions made by people all over the world. And if enough of those people choose the same foundation, the impact of one model can become far bigger than anyone expected, and maybe that's where the biggest misunderstanding begins. People keep asking, who will win the AI race? As if the finish line is already waiting somewhere ahead. But what if there is no finish line? What if every breakthrough simply moves the finish line even farther away? Think about the history of technology. When the internet became mainstream, people didn't stop innovating. When smartphones became powerful, innovation didn't end. When cloud computing transformed businesses, the race didn't finish, it simply entered another stage. AI appears to be following that same pattern. Every new model raises expectations. Every new capability creates entirely new problems to solve, and every solution opens the door to another challenge. That's why today's most advanced model may become tomorrow's starting point. Not because it failed, but because technology keeps moving, faster than anyone expects. Which also means something else. The companies leading today can't afford to slow down, not for a year, not for a few months, sometimes not even for a few weeks, because somewhere, another team is already training the next model. Another lab is testing another idea. Another breakthrough is getting closer. And in an industry moving this quickly, standing still can feel exactly the same as falling behind. So let's go back to where this story began. Qwen 3.8 Max Preview. At first glance, it looks like another AI launch, another benchmark. Another company claiming its model is smarter than the last one. But after everything we've explored, it becomes much more than that. Qwen isn't interesting simply because Alibaba built another powerful model. It's interesting because it arrived at a moment when the entire AI industry is speeding up. It tells us that competition is becoming broader, that more companies are capable of reaching the frontier, and that the next breakthrough could come from places many people weren't even watching a year ago. That's why this launch matters. Not because it answers every question, but because it raises new ones. How many frontier AI companies will exist 2 years from now? Will developers spread across multiple ecosystems? Or will a few platforms become dominant? Nobody knows. And that's exactly what makes this moment so fascinating. For the first time in years, it feels like the future of AI isn't being written by one company. It's being shaped by an entire wave of innovation happening at the same time. And Qwen 3.8 has become one of the clearest signals that this new chapter has already begun. So maybe the most important question isn't whether Qwen 3.8 is better than another model, or whether one benchmark is higher than another. Those numbers will change. New models will arrive. New records will be broken. The leaderboard will keep moving. The bigger question is this: what happens when multiple companies around the world keep pushing AI forward at the same time? Because that's when progress stops feeling linear and starts feeling exponential. One company makes a breakthrough, another responds. A third discovers a better approach. A fourth builds an entirely new application. And suddenly, innovation isn't happening one step at a time. It's happening from every direction. That's the future this launch is pointing toward. Not a future where one company controls everything, but a future where competition itself becomes the engine of innovation. And if that continues, the AI tools we use 5 years from now may feel as different from today's models as today's smartphones feel compared to the phones we carried 15 years ago. That's why this moment matters. Not because we already know how the story ends, but because we're watching a completely new chapter being written right in front of us. So, why is everyone suddenly talking about China's Qwen 3.8? The answer isn't hidden inside a benchmark chart. It isn't a single number. It isn't even one breakthrough. People are talking about Qwen because it represents something much bigger. It arrived at exactly the moment the world realized that China's AI industry wasn't producing isolated surprises anymore. It was producing momentum. And momentum is one of the most powerful forces in technology. Because once an entire ecosystem starts moving faster, every company inside that ecosystem is pushed to innovate. Every researcher is challenged to think bigger. Every developer suddenly has more choices, and every competitor is forced to respond. That's why this launch feels different. Not because Qwen 3.8 ended the AI race, but because it reminded everyone. The race is accelerating, and in a race that's accelerating, yesterday's impossible idea can become tomorrow's expectation. That's exactly why so many experts, developers, and technology enthusiasts paid attention to this release. Not because they believe the story is over, but because they believe something much bigger has just begun. And if they're right, then years from now, people may look back at this period and realize this wasn't the moment AI reached its peak. This was the moment it shifted into an entirely new gear. Maybe that's the biggest lesson from this entire story. Technology rarely changes the world because of one perfect invention. It changes the world because millions of people keep building on top of one another's ideas. And that's exactly why launches like Qwen 3.8 deserve attention. Not because they tell us who has already won, but because they remind us that the future is still being written. Right now, somewhere, another research team is training its next model. Another startup is building a tool that doesn't exist yet. Another breakthrough is quietly taking shape. And by the time the world finishes talking about today's AI model, tomorrow's headline may already be on its way. So maybe the smartest question isn't who is winning the AI race. Maybe it's who will still be innovating 5 years from now. Because in the world of artificial intelligence, the companies that stop improving don't stay ahead for very long. If you enjoyed breaking down the biggest stories behind the world's most important technologies, make sure you subscribe to Byte Dynasty. Because we don't just report what's happening, we explain why it matters. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.